right, good evening and welcome. This is the School District of Prescott Board of Education regular meeting. I will call the meeting to order subject to Section 1983 Wisconsin statutes. Our first item is to adopt the agenda. Dr. Spikuza, is there any changes?
There are no changes from administration.
Okay, we can accept a motion.
So moved.
Yep. A motion to adopt the agenda. I should just
So moved.
Yeah, right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Item in Pledge of Allegiance number 3. Helen, you want to lead us?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Item 4 is recognition of visitors. Rules for the public comment are as follows. Please approach the podium one at a time, stating your name, municipality, and topic you would like to address. A lot of time is 3 minutes per individual or 6 minutes if you are representing a group that is present at the meeting. All comments should be directed to the board and not to staff or other participants. The board will not act on any comments that are made during the meeting. The presiding officer may direct the district administrator to follow up with that individual at a later date. And finally, the public comment section will be limited to 30 minutes unless board action is taken, and refer to our public comment policy listed on the agenda for a full description if you so would like to do. Anybody care to be recognized at this time? Yep, come on up.
Tracy Budworth, Weddlesteiny, Clifton Township High School English teacher. I don't know if this is anything that I have to formally do, but I do want to just introduce myself as the new representative for the district for the teachers union. Lori Petretti did step down, retired last year, and so I got handed the stacks.
Congratulations.
And stacks. Really? I don't know if you guys need to know that, but I just thought it might be.
Well,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else care to be recognized? Under the age of 10? No? Okay. All right, we'll move on to good news.
We're going to have our Director of Student Services as the representative of all admin tonight.
Good evening, members of the board. Sandy Strand, Director of Student Services. I have a ton of good news. It'll probably take about 15, 20 minutes. But first of all, girls golf, holy smokes. They were the Toma Invitational champs. There were 20 total teams there, and they were the champs. Reedsburg, Jean Roll, and Gabby Matzik were the scramble team winners. And today they also won the New Richmond Invitational. I would say they are on par for an excellent season.
Nice.
Okay, super excited about that.
Well played. Wow.
Another thing that I just about lost my mind in the middle of Dr. Spikuza's presentation today is I got an email from the Department of Public Instruction. Prescott School District is being awarded $25,000 in a transition improvement grant that will help cover the cost and offset the use of some of our federal special ed dollars to pay for Project Search for one of our students. It's a transition program, and it also will pay for some initiatives around improving our transition programming and providing training to our middle school and high school teacher for intellectual disabilities. So super excited about that. Also today, Mr. Kosmalski, our Director of Teaching and Learning and Intermediate Principal, he kicked off our all-staff celebration of the district's achievements and presented to all staff about the topic of visible learning and thinking classrooms. And I just wanted to acknowledge that he did an outstanding job kind of setting us up for another successful year. And then I wanted to also finally thank our custodial staff and all of the buildings. Everything looks fantastic. My office is at the middle school, and I can't believe how shiny the floors are. It's absolutely amazing. And being part of another summer of construction, our staff have been showing amazing resiliency and flexibility in getting into buildings. The elementary office is almost completely put together. So I just want to extend our appreciation for all of the flexibility that all of our staff have demonstrated these past few weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you.
Did you have anything?
This is just a reminder to our community that we do have our Return to Learn days. All buses and food service will be operating. All 4 schools will be open, and we'll be receiving students on is it 26 or 27? 27? All right. So we're ready, and we can't wait to have our students on site. And I also want to thank all of the department chairs and the administrative team. This morning went extremely well. The luncheon went well. Wanted to thank both Mike and Helen for being there. It's been a long day, but Mike and Helen were able to greet our staff, and I think it was really important for our school board members to be present and visible, and it was truly appreciated. And I couldn't have done it without the support of our administrative team, and also the work that Andrea does behind the scenes, and Courtney Johnson as well, who was masterful at pulling off our luncheon. So thank you.
All right. Did you want to mention her?
We'll do it next one.
Okay. All right. All right. We're going to move on to school business, and the first item is the consent agenda. In consent, we have the July 17th regular board meeting minutes and the July 31st special meeting minutes. Finance report. Accept updated payroll and finance licensed staff salary schedule, fiscal year 2024, based on a 2.5% board parameters. Personnel report for non-licensed staff. Am I in the right spot here?
Yep,
Yeah,
it
hold
keeps
on.
going. It's a long consent.
Yeah. Accept the PSD SRO report, 25th annual trip to Lac de Flambeau, service agreement with family members for 24-25 for family means, contract agreement with Huddle Up for occupational therapy, service contract with Solient, did I get that right? Solient, for a high school paraprofessional, service agreement with River Falls School District for deaf, hard of hearing teacher, service agreement with River Falls School District for project search contract, accept Neola School Board technical updates and changes for the following board policies version 33.2 per district administrator's responsibility. Take a breath. Anything that the board would like to pull out of consent? If not, I'm going to adopt the consent agenda. Are there any objections? All right, the consent agenda is adopted. That saves us a lot of time. Okay, we're going to move on to item B, approve Tied to Care pilot program agreement.
And with the board's permission, we have our registered nurse, Jessica Studa, who's going to present on this. She's in transit, and it was duly noted. We would like to come back to this and move forward with the other agenda items.
All right, is that all right with the board?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, table that one. Next item is approval to hire up to 1.0 FTE position at Malone Elementary.
Yes, so one of the reasons we're bringing it to the board is it is a hot spot right now based on enrollment. We're up to just shy of 80 students. We, as you know, in order to make a balanced budget, we reduced each section, K-5, by one section. At this time, second grade is a hot spot. We would like to have the ability to hire anywhere to cover math and literacy, which is about a 0.6 position. And then if we're unable to secure that, we would try to then post at a 1.0. It obviously, one of the difficulties is the class sizes are about 26, 27, which are above board parameters. What would be different in this case is that it is the younger grades where obviously students' autonomy and ability to kind of learn on their own is challenged, and it's one of the key literacy. We would still be able to balance the budget. Karen and I would be able to find the dollars by reducing certain other areas within the budget. And as you know, currently the budget has money going to Fund 46, and so we might have to forestall paying for capital improvements to do this if you're willing to allow us to at least post and try to lessen. The challenge would be if you move to 4 is that then it does fall to kind of right in the bottom end of the range, right? And that's why we were thinking, at minimum, trying to get a .6 to cover math and literacy. Obviously, easier for the budget, and but also maybe a necessary need. The challenge, obviously, as you know, is that the high school has the largest enrollment, followed by Malone, but we can't just take a high school teacher and move them to elementary. Also, I have our elementary principal here if you would like to ask any further questions.
Vicki, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I guess we knew that second grade was going to be close. Is the .6 for reading and math, is that going to be sufficient? Like, I guess I would like to know if we are that close to the needing to add a section back to second grade, if we can find that, I mean, I guess that would be ideal. If that's what you...
I think at minimum, getting some relief in those core subject areas of reading and math would be huge.
Would help?
Would help a lot.
Okay.
The other classes, it would be specialists, it would be science, it would be social studies, and some other transitional times where those numbers would be at the 26 and 27. It's more manageable during those times, but we just kind of thought, like, with the budget the way it is, ideally 1.0, but at minimum a 1.6 to relieve that math and ELA time would be super helpful. Those are the areas that are tested. They're the ones that we really, really look at with Act 20 for reading.
Yep.
It's huge for Act 20 for reading, more than all other areas.
Okay.
Helen, you got any questions here?
So if you were able to find a 1.0 and break those classes up so they're smaller, would that be like a bubble teacher that would follow, or it would just be a one-year position?
I think that would have to be up for discussion. Like, it would depend on if there was an influx in and out. One of the things that happened, and I told Rick right when we were coming back in August, we had like 2 or 3 days of huge enrollment, and every family that enrolled brought a second grader. And we're like, that's the grade we don't need. But they were bringing second graders, and that's what kind of pushed it over the edge. Like, they were sitting at 25 and 26, and then we just kept getting more and more enrollments, and it put us at the 26 and 27.
Okay.
So it would depend on if enrollment continued to go up or down, or what happened there.
Helen, is that anything else?
No.
Okay. Tanya?
Well, new enrollments is great, so yay.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, yep.
Essentially.
Yep. And so the .6, it sounds like really working on our key target areas, reading, math. Yes, Wisconsin has some new math legislation out there. Reading legislation that we really need to focus on. I would prefer we really work hard at that .6 position, because once we start to get to a 1.0, that's a game changer when it comes to costs. And so I would be worried when we made big cuts, and we, for everybody that's come to our work sessions, they would know that we've been really working on how to find money even for the next year and stuff like that, and it just adds to that deficit. So do what you can. I have trust and faith in you guys, but ultimately I know our kids need to be able to learn, so.
Yeah. I've already put like some feelers, like just questions, like would anybody, so.
Yep, perfect.
Pat?
No questions, Rick. You just, if we need to, we would use, and we are able to use Fund 46?
No, we just wouldn't. Right now, we have built a budget where we have made contributions.
That's right. Okay, so.
But the budget isn't adopted till October.
Right, okay, so we could still undo that if necessary.
Yeah.
I guess my only comment would be is, although Fund 46 is very important, this would, my opinion, that this would take priority over that, so that would, my 2 cents.
Question with it does not say that it has to be a licensed position. Is it something that we can look at, like our colleges for and stuff like that, for somebody in the program? Or student teaching, or part-time? It just doesn't say licensed on here, so I was just
I would think it would have to be licensed.
Licensed, okay.
With the nature of the position, it would have to be licensed.
Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to clarify this. So we're approving a higher up to 1.0 FTE, but at the moment, the gap is a 0.6, and there's still a 0.4 in there to flex, or what do you
If we
think?
can't find somebody that would be interested, a .6 position is tricky, right? Because
Yeah,
they
right.
aren't working full-time, they don't necessarily get the full benefits package, right? So it takes a special person to be like, give me a .6, right?
Yeah.
So I think that would be the angle we would go first. Can we find somebody for that .6? And then if we absolutely run into a brick wall with the .6, then we could look at upping it. Could we up it to a .8, or could we up it to a 1.0? So that relief valve is there.
Okay, all right. And
So
Rick,
it's the up to, but we would like start at .6 to see what we can do and go from there.
makes sense. And so Rick, back to you now. If we approve up to a 1.0, the budget can handle it for the year, right? Second grade's a bubble class, that's gonna go into third grade. We're gonna, unless numbers go down, it's gonna have to, looking ahead, isn't that probably the logical
Well, the
place where we're gonna need it?
enrollment does fluctuate, right? And one of the things is that we may find that we have by the end of the year, we'll have attrition, we'll have people retire, we'll have people
Yeah.
leaving. So it
Okay.
gives us the flexibility that it doesn't have to be automatically absorbed
Okay.
for continuing on. Obviously, if it's a nice opportunity for people to have a long, opportunity to be observed, and if they knock it out of the park, we definitely would want to try to keep them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives you the flexibility for just being able to pull levers on budget. So I think that works. Okay, thanks a lot, Sarah. Anything else from the board? No. Okay. We can entertain a motion here.
I move to approve the hire of an up to 1.0 FTE position at Malone Elementary.
I'll second.
Okay, of an up to one, okay, yep. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion here? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries, thank you. And next is consider personnel reports for licensed staff, starting with new hires.
Yes, we have two new hires, middle school special ed, Bobby Joe Learman, and for speech and language pathologist, Rachel Bathan.
Questions or comments here, board?
No, is this our last special ed spot for teachers? Good. That's great.
All right. Should we just roll through these one at a time? Resignations next, and then we'll just vote on the whole thing, looks like. Yeah. So resignations.
Resignations, Stacy Campbell, speech and language pathologist, has resigned, and Larissa Dreyer, Malone counselor, has resigned.
Okay. Board, any questions, comments here?
I see we already have a hire for speech language. I assume it's replacing this position. Are we going to be hiring for a counselor?
Yes, and we have a posting up, and we're looking at some interviews by Friday, and we have an internal party that's interested as well.
Great. All right, and retirements, there are none.
Correct, sorry.
That's good to know in August that we don't have any retirements yet, so. Okay, well, you can take a motion here to approve this.
I move to approve the personnel report of licensed staff listed above.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one also carries. Item E is the donation for $5,000 to the Angel Fund.
Yes, we were, as you know, there is a policy that says once we receive a donation above a certain amount that we recognize. We did have somebody in our community that was very gracious but wanted to stay anonymous, but has donated $5,000 toward students in need or families in need. And based on the letter, that has been booked with our finance department and will be allocated as those wishes were made.
Any questions on this one, board?
Other than this is awesome
Okay,
and
thank
really
you.
a game changer for some of our kids and families.
All right,
I move to approve the anonymous $5,000 donation to the Angel Fund.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That also carries. Item F, consider first readings are updated or new Neola board policies.
Yes, so we have a host of policies tonight. We, last month, went through some of the technical changes. We had 3 that were adopted in consent today. We do have looks like almost, oh, there it is, 11. Policies, first reading. They range from health education, human growth and development, our district-sponsored trips, attendance, administration of medical and emergency care, graduation requirements, academic honesty, social media, food service, transportation, and public requests or suggestions or complaints. All of these can be pulled up if you have any that you wanted to specifically address. There wasn't anything that was dramatic other than, I think, just with human growth, obviously, there is statute about whether or not we provide that, and then what are the parameters, and also parental choice to be able to opt out of certain sections, as well as to review our syllabi, and then alternative assessments or projects that students would do. But happy to open up and walk through any if there was specific questions that you had with regards to the first reading.
Tanya, I'm going to you, Do you have any of these you want
I
to
normally
pull
just
up?
love board policy, but really, I don't have any questions. I wanted to point out, and I think, Rick, you kind of mentioned it here too, but the first couple have to do with some of the stuff that is being taught within the classroom, and so it talks a little bit about how if parents want their kids to opt out of it, they won't be penalized, and how to go about that process. So for families that are interested in that, that's a good one to look at. But really nothing stuck out to me as a big question though.
Pat?
No questions.
Vicki?
None?
Helen?
Nope.
Rick, are all of the changes, are we getting the recommendation coming from Neola? Or is this any of these kind of
So
more
they
unique
always,
than that?
yeah, so they give us some suggestions, and, some of the things that we're able to maybe put a Prescott twist on is that if students do opt out or a parent opts out of a certain aspect, then the question is whether or not a student is assigned an assessment or a project. From our perspective, we still want students to be learning while the other students are learning, so if they opt out of a certain section, we're just asking them to continue on with another health area, so they're still participating and engaged, and the staff would take care of that. Otherwise, for the most part, it's the follows state statute, make sure that we provide education in grades 7 through 12. You can pick whether or not it all falls into high school. We believe that developmentally it's important to get students prior to high school as well as during their high school years. So that is a kind of a personal choice for the Prescott Public Schools. And then lastly, similar to what Tanya said, is that all of our syllabus, books, and content that is taught is available for any parent to review.
Okay, any questions at all, board? Otherwise, we can make a motion.
I move to accept the first reading of the above noted policies, version 33.2. These will come back next month for a second reading before the board.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Item G, consider second reading of updated or new Neola board policies.
Yes, and two that we wanted to make sure that we touched on is the first one is 0164 with regards to meetings. And then I know, Tanya, you had a question just to make sure that we aligned our student handbook, our athletic handbook with transportation. I know that we had Mr. Montreal and our new AD, Matt Smith, review it, and I think they have responded, but I thought we can pull it up just to make sure that everybody sees it. With the meeting, Vicki Rudolph, thankfully, caught kind of a one sentence that was confusing, and it was specific to, you are aware that we do have cases where a board member may have to appear virtually. Obviously, that can be a challenge when you get into situations that are closed session where confidentiality occurs. The way the sentence was written, it was a little bit confusing, and so she and I are proposing an edit that appears at the bottom. So this is board policy that you already have seen. The only thing that we're going back to is the last paragraph in green, and it was about whether or not, it basically says that the PSD school board prefers members to be physically present for closed sessions, right, because of the confidentiality. However, a board member may attend, I guess we can take out only, attend a closed session portion of the meeting. It had said in person, but I think the intent was virtually with the board president's approval and the board member verbally representing that they are alone and that their physical location is secure from any third party overhearing the proceedings of the closed session due to confidentiality issues. Again, this is an option, right? You can choose not to allow virtual, or you can allow virtual during closed. This is just putting parameters that obviously, because of confidentiality, they have to confirm with you that they are. But what we're catching is that it said in person, and I think the intent was that they were virtual.
Yeah.
Do the edits match what we kind of talked about with your suggestions or concerns?
You can take out the
Yeah.
word only. Instead of may
Yep.
only attend, it just would say may attend.
May attend, yep. Virtually, yeah. Yep.
Anybody else have any questions or comments on this one? I think it's a good edit.
No, it makes sense.
That is now duly edited. Then for transportation, I believe that is 8660, transportation by a private vehicle for district-sponsored activities. I'll pull that up. Rick, do you have a quick comment about what was reviewed? And Tanya, I'll make sure that it shows up on screen here in a second.
I think the two main issues were who would do the transporting, would it be a parent or another approved family member? And then we looked at the age, and we settled on 18 years of age at minimum, and that aligns with the new reading of the policy and what we have in the activities code.
So, and this goes back to, was it just last month we talked about this?
Yeah.
Really feels like a long time ago. But what had been brought up was that basically a sibling could not drive another sibling home after a sporting event or something. And so you guys are recommending kind of standing by that unless that student is 18?
Well, that was a recommendation we did come.
Or drive themselves home, or, yeah,
And I think
okay.
it was originally 21. We actually.
Yeah, I think so too.
18 to kind of include the senior class.
Yep, okay.
You guys have any questions on this? Comments? Helen? No? Vicki?
No, we discussed it and the changes were made.
Pat?
No
You good with
questions.
it?
No, yeah, I'm good.
I'm good with it. Any other policies that we want to pull up here? It is, a reminder, it is a second reading.
Maybe just quick then, Rick, we pulled out, I mean, that was the two that I had notes on too, is meetings, then transportation. No other edits from the last reading last month have
Thank
been
you.
made, correct?
Correct. There are no other changes
Okay.
from since the previous reading. And as you remember, a lot of them were like the public records is just how we handle it, use of credit cards. A lot of it is also just adding language to match statutes. So it wasn't anything significant in any of these.
All right, we can take a motion.
I move to accept the second reading of the above noted policies, version 33.2, with following edits as discussed or presented.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. Thank you.
Point of order.
You want to go back to?
Yes, so our registered nurse who oversees for the Prescott Public Schools is finally here. As I mentioned, she was commuting to get here on time. It was duly noted in our agenda, and it is good news, and so I would like Jessica Studi to come on up. I'll pull up your presentation. Yep, and if you just come up to the podium.
Okay, so this year, there have been some challenges with trying to figure out how to get nurses at every school because I have been splitting my time between the high school and the intermediate. But this year, in the elementary, those students that required medical care are now coming to the intermediate, which means that we have to have me full-time there, which then makes the high school not have anyone. And so what we looked at is in the state of Wisconsin, CISA 6 has a grant that allows for telenursing through TitoCare and Bell Health. And what it does is it brings these devices, it's at a zero cost to the district for this year, for the year that it covers the grant. And then it allows students to have that ability to have a nurse to assess when Mel or I are not able to come over right away. Or if I was gone or Mel was gone and only one of us was left in the district, that's covering 12 to 1,300 students. And that's just not humanly possible with one person. So this device, and you can go to the next, Rick, is called the TitoCare. And what it does is it can assess, so it brings up a nurse on your screen. They are paying for the device and the service this year, just so you know. And this little device, that little square device, has attachments that can then check the kids' ears internally so they can actually see what the student's ears look like on the inside. It can assess lung sounds, heart sounds. It can look at the throat of a student. It can assess the heart rate, the temperature, the skin. They can actually do an assessment of the skin just by holding the camera up. And then also they can do abdominal sounds. So, and then for staff, this is also for staff and students, and it's free of charge. So go to the next one, Rick. So what does it look like? So school staff will actually initiate, so that would be the admin assistants. I am partnering with each school's admin assistants to do this because since it's a free device this year, they, when I met with TitoCare and Bell Health, they're like, well, it's free this year. Do you want to do it at every school just in case? I was like, oh, yeah, let's try it. So we're going to have it at every school is the goal, but the main two that I'm focused on are the middle school and the high school because that's where we're not at this year. So they will initiate the visit. It's through like an iPad. It is HIPAA and FERPA compliant, but we do need to get permission from the parents. So there is paperwork that has to be filled out prior because they are minors. Staff are able to do it by themselves because they're consenting adults over the age of 18. So this visit can last anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes depending on what they're assessing. So what ends up happening is our staff will initiate the visit. The student will be on there and we'll have like a running list of who is approved to do these visits. Otherwise, we can actually call the parents if they're not approved and see if they are willing to give consent over the phone, and then they'll have to sign those papers after that visit is complete. So that paperwork would get sent on over to them. So then what ends up happening is the nurse comes on, they, ask what's going on, what is the ailment, what is the complaint, and then the nurse will do an assessment based on what the complaint is. So if a kid comes in, sore throat, it has an actual ability to look in the back of the throat. And if they were to see like white patches or just redness, they could then give a recommendation. They would do a temperature, of course, give a recommendation, and will end up either calling the parents or they would give the school the recommendation, no, the student looks well enough to go back to class. So if they do recommend further evaluation, yeah.
Sorry, just a quick question. So who actually calls the parents?
So it would be us. So it'd be
Okay.
the admin assistants or
Okay,
us.
okay,
Yep.
all right.
And the staff with TitoCare also can call. They will call if it is like a recommendation, like you should really see the doctor. And if a nurse isn't there, they would be the one taking that call, not the admin assistants. I hope that clarifies that.
Thank you.
So that's kind of where this one would go, what a visit would look like. I will say the one thing that Bellin Health did bring up is that they can't obviously do antibiotics for strep because you do need a swab for strep to make sure you're treating the correct virus. So what they have said though is they don't have doctors, because nurses cannot diagnose, but we can definitely guide doctors on what the recommendation, as well as parents, just like we do here. And so what would end up happening is if they thought that an antibiotic, let's say it's an ear infection, they could actually partner with a physician within Bellin Health and have a prescription sent to whatever pharmacy that family chose. That is the only cost that family would ensue, but they would have to be able to give approval, the parent would, prior to that prescription being sent, okay? So that way they know the cost, but like I said, the actual visit, there is no cost. It's only if an antibiotic was ever needed. So the parents would pay for that prescription through their own insurance. So no insurance information is collected from the parents, no credit cards are collected from either staff or parents. So it's a completely free program that has to have approval from the parents. So you can go to the next one. And I do have I don't know if you wanted to watch the video, but I did include for you guys, there is a video on that last slide. You can actually watch the entire, like what a visit would look like, okay? It is from South Dakota, because that's where one of their trials was. So you'll see that they'll like be talking as though they partner with South Dakota doctors. We obviously would not. So the forms that they would need to fill out are the registration agreement. So this is the agreement that the student or staff member has with Bellin Health and allows them to use the service. Then there's the communication consent, and these are all online. Otherwise, paper copies can also be given if parents request. This allows for Bellin Health's nursing team to speak with students. So there has to be those two agreements. One is that they can use the device and the services, and the second is that Bellin Health can speak with students. So parents would have to give that consent. And the third one is release of information. In healthcare, in order to be able to talk between two entities, you have to have a release of information. So for Bellin Health to then communicate with the district nurses for continuity of care, there's that release of information piece. So it's only between Bellin Health and the Prescott School District. So it's not like to their doctor, it's only specifically between the two of us. So, any questions on that?
Anyone?
Yeah, but I might wait till you're done.
What?
Yes, but I might wait till you're done.
Okay. So the benefits of the Title Care is it's open to all students. They don't need to be a patient of Bellin Health, so that doesn't matter. It's step-by-step login instructions. Like I said, it's HIPAA and FERPA compliant. The goal of this program would be to improve like the educational outcomes, meaning we would like to keep students here because it's been proven in research that when students are at school, they learn better and they do better in school. Same for staff, because they're able to use this. If they have a question about like their blood pressure is high or anything like that, they can use this service for that. And that can then help them so they can communicate with their doctors. So it gives them guidance as well. And our goal is to keep our staff in school and not sick, but obviously that does happen. And then it provides that equality of care. So for some of these families in our district, they don't have doctors. They don't have the ability to go to a clinic because they don't have transportation. So this can actually help them bridge that gap as well. Because financially, medical expenses are extremely high, higher than they've ever been. And so this is one of our ways to be able to utilize that for our district. It obviously keeps the kids, like I said, in school, and then if antibiotics are advised, that nurse will contact a practitioner, discuss their findings, and then decide if a prescription needs to be sent. And that's where that would go. Okay? Cost. So like I said, this year for the 24 to 25 school year, the cost is nothing. So the device is covered, which is $1,000 per unit, and that's a one-time fee every year. And then because our enrollments at each building are between that 201 to 500 for the middle school and the high school, the 375, if we did decide next year and there wasn't a grant, that would be the cost we'd be looking at monthly if we decided to continue this service. But that's why this year we're looking to do the pilot to see, does this benefit our students? Is there enough use that will be provided for our students? And does it help our staff and students? Because if it doesn't help, then there's no reason to continue after that. So this would be our pilot year. So, okay. And that's pretty much everything that kind of entails, so.
Pat, did you have some questions?
Yeah, this was great. It answered most of mine, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
A couple of it, so it sounds like it would be administered by admin or administrative assistants
Yep.
at the schools.
Yep.
You're going to train them, of course.
Title
Yep.
Care is actually coming in.
Okay, so they come in and train.
When they bring the devices, we have to
Yep.
have IT,
Yep.
which I've already spoke to Andrew Holland about,
Yep.
because they need to be able to access our internet services. And then, so it's IT. I'm going to have one admin assistant be like my go-to at each school. Obviously, at the intermediate and the middle, we only have one, so those are my two. At the high school, I know it's going to be Abby. And then at the elementary school, I'm probably looking, I know I kind of volunteered or voluntold her, it's going to probably be Maddie.
Okay.
Just because that way it's, I've got one point of contact at the schools, and they can also ask questions, and I can contact Bellin if I need to.
Good. So only trained people will be doing this, and for example, if Abby were gone, we just may not be able to use this service that day at that building.
Well, Annie would still be trained. So all of the admin assistants would be trained. It's just I want one person at each school to be my contact.
Sure.
But yes, at the middle school, if Katie's gone, they did give us options, and this is up to our principals, our admin. If they want to be trained, they absolutely can. But our goal is if hopefully, like I said, if one is gone, Mel or I can come over and typically assess. It's just that time constraint's there. So no matter what, they'll never be without an option to assess.
Right.
It's just that this will help streamline when we're insanely busy with our schedules.
Okay. You mentioned that there'll be an IT interface, as well. Rick, any risk from an insurance perspective on misdiagnosis or cybersecurity, or I know it's a HIPAA and a HERPA certified system, but anything we got to check in with our risk folks?
Yeah, I think if we move forward, we definitely will reach out to EMC, who oversees us, just to make sure that everything, basically kind of a shared agreement. We'll make sure that we're in good standing.
And there will be no diagnosis, just so everybody's clear. Nurses cannot make diagnoses.
Yep.
So if there is a diagnosis to be made, it would be on that of a doctor. So that would only be if they have to contact. So the usual steps is that...
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify. I'm just thinking if the name of the system, again, if they said, no, you're okay, you stay in school, and there were some...
Right.
Adverse effects.
Adverse effects of that decision.
And truly, if we said that too,
Totally understand.
Yep.
This is just a new piece that we should check with our risk carrier. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is on the parental consent, they got to fill out a form. I assume it's kind of an annual, maybe a one-time thing. Okay, and then they're good to go.
Every year if we continue.
And then the last one.
Health form. Sorry, guys.
Oh. And then the last one for me, I think, was the whole, if a doctor says, we're going to make a prescription, and then, the parent obviously is going to incur cost.
Yep.
At what point in time do we, at any time, get involved in that transaction? And
I don't believe, in my personal opinion and in healthcare, I don't feel that the school district should be involved in that transaction. Because if they had gone to a doctor and the doctor sent the prescription just like this would happen, they would be paying out of their insurance. They would not only have the cost of the visit, they would also then have the cost of the antibiotic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just on a personal and also professional level. It's like once a professional sends over a prescription, that prescription is then, that provider, I should say, is then responsible for that prescription.
Yeah.
So the school shouldn't have any like connection with that
Okay.
prescription.
So at that point in time, it would be a Berlin Health person
Yep.
working directly with the parent.
Yep.
And our admin
They would
assistant
then
team
send us
will be
the
out of the
visit.
transaction.
Yeah, we
Okay,
stay
good.
out of it.
Okay.
Yep. Nope.
Thank you.
I don't want anything to do with that, honestly.
Yep.
So.
Okay, thanks.
And we need to make sure that, and that's why when we do, if we go forward with this, there will be information. I do have handouts that will go out to parents, so it explains, like, there's a website that even kind of asks, those frequently asked questions that would be sent to parents. And then there's letters that I can actually send to you guys. I have them. If you guys do decide to go through, it'll literally go through all of what the parents would probably have questions about, because it answered a lot of my questions as well. And then it gives them resources too, to kind of look into it, like, is this something we want to do? So, because some parents do not want physicians in contact with their
Right.
kids. They want only like chiropractic or holistic medicine. We don't anticipate those kids will use this service, to be honest.
It sounds like a great opportunity to
Yeah.
pilot something. Does our admin team, maybe like the middle school and the high school, Mr. Igo is smiling now, because he told me earlier he didn't have a speaking part, so I'm asking him a question
Now
now.
you're putting them on the spot.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
did review it as a team, and we
Yeah.
thought that, specifically, we even looked at it last year, but there
Yeah.
wasn't a grant.
Yeah.
And we obviously
The device
couldn't do it.
wasn't covered.
Right?
So it went 1,000 a device.
Yeah, and so once the grant opened up and we were able to secure it, it really seemed like, specifically, it just gives us more flexibility, and there's really low risk and high reward for us. And obviously, then if it turns out that it's really good, then we're going to have to make a tough decision about whether or not we can financially carry it
Okay.
forward.
And I'm hopeful, I will say that, I'm optimistically hopeful that they'll continue the grant, only for the fact that they did see benefits at other schools, and with the fact that if they are able to continue this grant, then there's more partnership with schools. And that's what CISA wants. So,
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah,
That
so-
they've seen this already. I mean, so
Yep.
you said through CISA 6?
Yep.
They're doing it?
so
How many?
CISA 6 is the one who's running the entire program.
Yep.
So they're the ones who sent the information, reached out to all the nurses within Wisconsin
Oh,
school
nice.
districts.
Okay.
So this goes to every district. The one thing that they saw was kind of a hindrance for districts was last year when that device wasn't covered.
Right.
They saw so many
Yep.
people wanted to do it.
Yep.
But then once we found out the cost, we were like, hold
Yeah.
up, that's $2,000 right there. Yeah, it's great that the service is free. Now, could I see that they potentially would go back to that? Possibly, depending on how much they could get for a grant.
Yep.
But what they saw was the benefits outweighed the
Yep.
risks.
Yep. So,
Especially for rural families.
well, and that's what I was wondering, is that they obviously saw a need, and when they wrote the grant
Correct.
for it, they had the need, and
Yes.
do you know, I guess, do you have any idea how many schools are
I don't, but I can
using
definitely
this?
ask that. and
Yeah, I'm
get that
kind of
back to you.
curious to see
Yeah.
where they're at with numbers,
Absolutely.
so.
Okay.
It sounds
definitely get that
great. I mean, the device looks really cool, like it's got,
It is, and actually I found out after doing all the research too with this, you can actually get these devices for your own house.
well, that's what I was
And I'm
wondering.
like, wait, what?
Everybody does their thing with their nurse,
Yes.
they're like, okay, show me your throat, and you're up to your camera, where this, I'm
Where
like.
this actually goes
yeah,
in.
Yeah, and I'm like.
I grossed all of our staff out today with all the pictures of like
Yeah.
ears and throats. And
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, it gives you clear pictures too. And that was like crisp quality. That's not heard of with healthcare.
Right.
Because usually it's through, it's kind of like a Zoom meet.
Yeah.
But it's through all these firewalls that you have to go, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Because you've
doesn't-
got to have that
yep.
HIPAA and FERPA compliance to do this.
So they've got this figured
And
out.
they have to be in the state of
so-
Wisconsin
Oh.
in order to do
Yep.
this. So that's the
Yep.
other thing. So as a nurse or as a doctor, you cannot practice outside of your state.
Right, correct.
So these are doctors that are here in the state, and most of them are through UW-Madison. So, yeah.
Helen, did you have any other questions here?
No, I think they were all asked. The only one that I would probably ask is that obviously school starts pretty soon.
School does start, yep.
So what's the turnaround rate?
So when I last talked to them, it would be 2 weeks. They had ordered the devices just with the pending. They wanted to make sure that they would have them here with the intent before school if it was approved. Otherwise, they would have held on to the devices and then returned. So we already did that, I want to say 2 weeks ago. So, because it takes a few weeks to get the device and then they have to come and train.
The training.
Yep,
Okay.
so right now, until we have this approval, we have that on hold and they know that.
Okay.
So, yep.
Perfect.
Tanya, did you have anything?
Yeah, I had a couple questions. Pat and Vicki, you guys had some great questions, and I just, if we went forward, it looks like we're just planning on, so beyond this year, we're projecting it would be used at 2 of our schools.
At only 2. I would, if honest, I mean, those are the 2 that I would want this at, honestly. Because I see what our admin assistants do every day, and the amount of time that is dedicated, like I sent you guys in the end of the year nursing report, 10,450 visits, that is insane. Especially when you look at, we only have 1,200 students. So this will help streamline that, and that's kind of what our goal is. And it's gonna have some kinks in the beginning, just like everything does. But I think once everything gets ironed out, the smoothness of this program can be substantial. So,
Yeah.
but yes, it would only be for the 2 going forward, if we were to talk about continuing the service.
And then it would be right around like $10,000 a year, it looks like, between the
Yes.
2 buildings and the equipment and stuff like that.
Yes.
So considering the cost of a full-time staff member and stuff, that might really help
It's a
with
lot
that
less
balance.
than hiring another nurse.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
absolutely.
Yep.
My only, first of all, like, it's an AI kind of technology, which I
Yep.
think is really cool, some of the things that we're able to do. My biggest concern, and not even really concerned, but just making sure we're thinking through, is kind of some of the confidentiality pieces and the equity of access to it,
Correct.
which I think is really probably going to help give access to our families, like uninsured families
Correct.
and stuff like that, which is going to be really great. But some of those hard to reach families and hard to engage families are also the ones that are probably going to have the most difficult time filling out all of this paperwork and understanding it and stuff like that. And I just
And they
really
can
want to
do
ensure.
verbal, worst case scenario. So I did ask Belen about that, is, because we do have some families that definitely are
Yep.
more abrasive or don't want to do everything but want to use the service.
Right.
And so those are the families that we could then, yes, use a verbal consent. The Belen Health would take the verbal, not us.
Okay.
So, yep.
Okay, and then that was kind of my, I mean, it's not, I guess just thinking of our data systems, that we're gonna have to be
Yep.
very careful of how we're, every time a student comes down, it can't be the default that they get this. We're gonna have to
No.
look up and see. do they
Yeah, if
have
they
the
need
paperwork and
meds, it's just
confidentiality?
headache.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
so this is only to really be used as, okay, they come down with an ear, like, ear problem. Well, just like I would do. If a kid came down, I'm gonna check their temp, I'm gonna check their ear. I even look in their throat, because sometimes what you see in their throat kind of tells me a bigger picture on what I can see in the ears. So it's that assessment piece. But yeah, if they come down, I have a headache, I ask 4 questions to every high school student and they hate it, but it's, how long has it been? You know, when did you last take something? What is the, describe your headache, 0 to 10, what is it at? And the reason I do that is because I want to know, are we just coming to skip class? Because that is a big thing at the high school and middle school. Or are we truly having issues that now I should probably contact your parents? Do we have a vision screen? So there's a lot of assessment pieces that go in, and when they contact us and give us the report of the visit, we're gonna, number 1, upload it into the student's health file. So this will always be part of their health file. And is only seen, Andrew has that part locked down for staff. So it's only admin assistants, and myself that can see those, and then that's it. So nobody else needs to see student records without
And this-
that confidential.
This is a nurse.
Yes.
On the other end,
Yep.
a live person. This is not a computer asking
No.
you to enter
No.
information.
I would not want it if it was
Yeah,
a computer.
yeah. No, it is a live nurse, so I
Yes.
just wanted to clarify, because
Yeah.
Tanya mentioned AI,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'm pretty sure you had said this
No,
is an
this is
actual
live.
nurse. Because a live nurse is gonna do what you did about a
Right.
headache. They're gonna go, okay,
Let's go through things.
let's
Yes.
pull a little more information out here
Yes.
because they are on video, correct?
Yes, yep, so you'll see, if you watch the video that's in the slides, you'll see like a screen to screen, so it'll be you on one side and the nurse on the other side, or in the little box. So, and then it'll show you on the screen that the nurse sees, like, the video shows you what the
Yeah,
nurse doing the visit looks like.
I wanted to watch it, but I didn't.
Yeah, I know.
Coming across.
So it'll show you what the visit will look like on
Okay.
her side, and it actually just flows in the data. So when she starts like doing a stethoscope on, you're gonna hear it, like, so they can detect murmurs, arrhythmias, everything just by listening, or lung sounds. I mean, we're trained professionals to hear what sounds are the lungs producing.
Yeah.
Is it fluid? Is it, crackle? Like, what are we hearing? Are they wheezing? Because if they're asthmatic, we obviously know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of what ifs, or, oh, but what about that? So it's that assessment piece that this is gonna kind of bridge that gap.
Perfect.
Because admin assistants don't have that ability.
Medical training.
Let me tell you, they can pull teeth too, to try and figure out the real reasons. But that assessment piece isn't required of them, nor is that within their scope.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
yep.
Right.
Great. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board, anybody want to make a motion here, or any questions or comments before we do? Otherwise, we can take a motion.
I move to approve Title Care Pilot Program Agreement through Bellin Health.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. And then we're going to jump back to item H, set date and time for the September annual meeting for Prescott Community.
Yes, let me get the agenda back up.
It's just, they're overhead.
So we're on letter H. The reason, there's two different ways the date gets set. It can either be at the annual meeting or deferred to the board. The last few years, it's been deferred to the board so that our finance department and superintendent have the time to have the numbers together. In addition, we have moved to have it following the third Wednesday of the month so that the board is the first group to see. However, due to all the changes that have occurred since April 2nd, you have been inundated that we'll talk about the building of the budget. But nevertheless, we are recommending that it be Wednesday, September 25th, 6 p.m. here at Prescott High School Media Center.
Rick, really quick, a quorum is not needed for the annual meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if you can't make it, we can still hold the meeting, so it shouldn't hold us up. Anybody have any concerns with the 25th?
I can't make it, but I don't need to be here, so.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
I move to approve September 25th at 6 p.m. at the Prescott High School Library for the annual meeting.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. And we're going to move to item I, PHS proposal on driver's ed program, moving to to an external provider.
So, as you know, Mr. Figge came forward, and we asked him to follow up on two different options. Prescott Public Schools no longer is going to be able to sustain a driver's ed program based on staffing and finances, and I believe we have two great partnership opportunities, and Josh will walk you through both.
Yeah, thank you. Well, good news, because I think at the July board meeting, which seemed like it was forever ago, I think somebody here threw out the word catastrophic if we couldn't find someone to take this over. So the good news is we did a lot of legwork in the last month, and we have 2 organizations that have agreed to essentially bid out our driver's education program and take us on as partners. The first we kind of talked about in July, which is Northwoods Technical College. We exist within Chippewa Valley Technical College's area. Northwoods operates to the north out of New Richmond, but we worked with CVTC. They were all too happy to connect us and give permission. And so Northwoods provides driver's education to about 20 different school districts in the northern sector of the surrounding area of New Richmond. The good news there is we currently have 1 instructor who is employed through Northwoods, but also does our driver's education here. So just kind of moonlights through Northwoods. And we have a second instructor who has an application there, and they've agreed to hire this person pending our partnership with Northwoods. So in terms of instructors, we currently have 2 people who are already solidified. They also have other staff members who could move into our area if we saw, for example, a boom in a graduating class and we had 150 students instead of 100. In terms of how this course would look, we would still have an on-site option. In fact, they emphasize an on-site face-to-face option. They see fewer issues with that, but they do have an online option that is offered to students, and they do also offer on-site face-to-face options throughout the school year too, during the evening. So like a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday option. So we have different abilities for our families and students to opt in at that point. Those would happen here at Prescott High School, as would behind the wheel with some of those current instructors. The cost of families, you can see the breakdown there. The theory class is $125, behind the wheel is $275, for a total of $400. The Safety and Respect Driving School operates out of Eau Claire, and so you'll see a lot of schools south of I-94 that are using the Safety and Respect Driving School. Locally, Ellsworth, River Falls, and Spring Valley all have contracted with them. I've been in touch with the CEO or owner of Safety and Respect Driving School. They're very eager to partner with us. They don't have instructors currently in our area above and beyond what they currently offer to Ellsworth, River Falls, Spring Valley. So they would need to hire more instructors. One of the things I should point out is the pay for instructors would occur through Northwoods or through Safety and Respect Driving School. Northwoods is competitive, so their salary that they pay their instructors is about double what Safety and Respect Driving School is able to offer. Part of that's because they're part of a larger organization that's subsidized. But Safety and Respect Driving School gives the bonus of using the driver's ed car as a company car. So there's kind of 2 sides to that coin. They only offer an online option at Safety and Respect Driving School. It occurs yearly, although we would emphasize the summer, and they are okay with that. It could occur with, well, it would occur at Prescott High School, but we would, again, need to hire instructors, and after speaking with our current instructors, they are not apt to move to instruct with Safety and Respect Driving School for the reason of salary. The cost breakdown, they do a package deal. You can't do a theory class but not do behind the wheel or vice versa with them. It comes out to $435, so it's more expensive than Northwoods Technical College. Our recommendation ultimately, after speaking with our 2 current instructors, reviewing the program kind of top to bottom with what's offered, the methodology, the course, etc., and then the total cost for families, because we currently are charging $280, which is the lowest in any of those schools, and any other school that's independently offering, would be an increase, but it's still less expensive to go with Northwoods Technical College, so that would be our recommendation.
Helen, do you have any questions or comments for Josh here?
So this would take effect for the next, like this summer coming up, so those students that, right, because the ones that were in it this summer would finish it. Like
Yeah, it's a good question. So Safety and Respect Driving School, above and beyond the need to hire instructors, felt like the soonest they could come on board would be January through February 2025. Northwoods Technical College believes they could come on board between August and October 2024, so in the next couple months, to start to offer things. There'd be the one thing that we would need to work out in terms of transition is we currently have students who are finishing behind the wheel. We currently have students who would be starting behind the wheel under a price that we had promised, so those would be things we need to work out that would be less on Northwoods to figure out and more on us to figure out about how we work with our families, what we would be willing to do to bridge that gap versus are we just making a clean break and saying, you got a free theory course, but this is what the behind the wheel now costs, which is actually $5 less.
$5 less.
So
Yeah.
it would be a clean break in that respect. Safety and Respect Driving School would not be as clean of a break because they don't split things up.
Okay.
And our parents now it wouldn't go through us at all. It would go through, they would pay it.
All finances would go through either entity. Yep, as would all permitting, all scheduling, everything. It would take it all off of our administrative staff, myself. Even every year we need to recertify our driver's education program, go through a questionnaire, make sure that we're complying with the DMV and DPI requirements. All of that would shift off of us to either of these entities.
And that wouldn't be part of our summer school anymore, so we would lose.
So that's a great question. Summer school, there is the possibility with both that we could still use this for summer school. Safety and Respect Driving School, the gentleman who owns it is a former teacher. His license is lapsed, but he has the ability to get it back, and he has done that in the past. So he's willing to reacquire that licensure to make sure that he's in compliance with DPI so that it could be a summer school counted course. That would be predicated on us paying for a portion of that course. Again, we can't charge students for anything that we're going to come to summer school. Northwoods Technical College, we're in kind of the preliminary talk of whether that's possible. We believe it is. Students take CBTC courses over the summer through us, and as long as they're not paying for it, if we're paying for it, or online courses, we can use it as summer school. Even though it's not occurring here, it's occurring with an accredited institution. They're an accredited institution, and it's being taught by two of our teachers who hold licensures. So we're both in agreement that we think it's possible, but we don't have all of those T's crossed and I's dotted.
Vicki?
No questions.
Tanya?
Well, I have some questions, but I think overall, like, this is a move that we have to make. I mean, our instructors are saying that they can't stay on board and continue. I mean, it's the capacity for them to do it. It's just too much. So I completely understand the move. It aligns with what other school districts really are doing. We're pretty much one of the only ones left offering the way it was. I have questions because my daughter still took it a year and a half ago and has not done driver's ed yet behind the wheel. So she took it not this summer. Last summer, we paid the $280, and so I would assume then she's gonna fall under the still old $280, and we're just waiting. And I'm just saying, because there's probably gonna be, she's from a year and a half ago, so there's probably quite a few students in that situation that we're still gonna be following up with. And like, we're kind of getting close to that date, so we'll have to wait for information, it sounds like, or however that's gonna look, I assume. I think there's gonna be a lot of questions coming your way, because that's gonna be, yeah, I mean, I have our little letter here and stuff like that, so I understand it all, but I'll look forward to that. And then we had some questions when it came to the summer school stuff, and it sounds like that stuff that you guys are still exploring, that will be the biggest hit, I think, for us when it comes to budget and stuff like that, is how, if we're not able to, we get quite a few of our kids in summer school taking this class and stuff like that, so. And that impacts our budget for 3 years to come.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I do want to be clear, regardless of the summer school, I don't, in the long term, probably beyond this year, and I know we used that word last month, catastrophic, I don't believe that this is long-term viable, regardless of if we're getting summer school funds or not. We will likely lose it, so.
Lose
We can't sustain,
We
we can't
probably
hire
can't
drivers.
sustain in the
Oh,
current
if
climate
we were to
driver's
do the whole
education.
thing without this.
Yeah.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also to look like the families that have already taken that first part, it would be nice for us to look at like how we could finish that and make that clean cut.
We'll do everything we can to bridge, but we are, I mean, if something happened to the only instructor we have, we're going to be in the same boat.
Sure.
Pat, any questions?
No questions, very logical.
Yeah, this is a good move. Thanks for putting this together, Josh. It was really clear. Okay, so we're looking at a motion here for Northwoods Technical, I assume. I don't see anything other.
That's how we would, yes.
Yeah, I would.
Does anybody want to take a stab at that one?
Trying to get to
Okay,
it.
I see it.
Go ahead. Somebody else. I move to approve, sorry, there's
On the electronic.
Yeah.
mowing
You get the
PHS driver's ed.
moving.
Okay, I move to approve moving Prescott High School's driver's education program with to Northwoods Technical College external provider.
Sounds good.
I second.
That's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Thank you. On to item J, resolution authorizing the school district budget to exceed revenue limit by 1.2 million for recurring purposes.
All right. Well, board members, it feels like we've been in this bubble for probably 2 years. We identified a fiscal cliff that was coming. We were clear that we were currently being funded by federal dollars and not state dollars. The state did not fund public education for 2 years during COVID, and that is why you see that they had an incredible fund balance. The difficulty is that is our local taxpayers' money, and people probably expected that that money was coming back to local districts. It is hard to continuously do more with less, and that just doesn't compute. It's simple math. This is what I talked to our teachers on the keynote this morning. No other business or organization would continue to make cuts and still excel. And yet, one of the things that we've been able to do here in Prescott is deliver. We have additional information that has come forward. Not only are we #1 compared to the Middle Border Conference in academic growth and performance on the Wisconsin Forward, we also are near the top, if not the top, with regards to the Great Rivers Conference. We are top 10 in academics in the state of Wisconsin and top 15 in the state of Wisconsin. As you know, ACT scores and the National Assessment of Educational Performance, Wisconsin is one of the top performers in the whole state. So we have, the state compared to all other states in the country, and then within Wisconsin, we're at the top of the top. And so one of the things I think is, just to be clear, however, is you can't continue to cut and excel. You can't continue to wonder if you have a next meal and start to think about long-term plans, long-term a future. Our programs are at risk, our students are at risk, and our staff are at risk for us to be able to attract and be competitive for compensating our staff. In 2002, the state of Wisconsin was in the top 11% of providing funding for education. In the last 2 decades, we have now fallen, the largest drop of any state in the union and other territories. We are now ranked 25th, and we are currently funded as public education 5.6 below the national average. And that was before the 2021-22 funding freeze. This is not a Prescott problem. This is a formula problem, and we've talked about it numerous times. But one concrete example, if you look at this graph, It shares with you in 2008, 2009, the legislature during the recession decoupled funding per pupil from inflation. Prior to that, from 1993 up through 2008, per pupil aid was always increased by the rate of inflation. This graph is showing if inflation was still part of the overall formula for funding per pupil. That is the blue line. In fact, Prescott Public Schools would be receiving nearly $3,300 more than it currently receives per pupil. That calculates to $4 million. The orange line is how we are currently funded. That gap is a gap that we, since 2016, have added a fourth building, added 40 acres of green space for activities, community, sports, community ed, and Prescott Community Rec. In 2016, 2017, we did renew an operating levy for $1.45 million. That is one that we used to have on a non-recurring basis. We are talking about operations. These are our fixed costs. These are paying for keeping the lights on, heating our buildings, cooling our buildings, paying for our personnel. Our President, Mike Matzik, talked about with the City Council that we are a profession that has 80% of our budgets go to personnel. We are a personnel-heavy and driven organization. In order to attract and retain and be competitive with our neighbors, we have to be able to pay those wages. So Prescott Public Schools did receive and currently has an operating levy in 2016. However, that gap of $4 million, we have less than 50% of that. We have looked at multiple scenarios. Since April, you have participated in 4 work sessions. You have also had 4 regular board meetings. You have looked at over 12 different scenarios with regards to budgets, different parameters, and estimates. And we've been able to present with you ways that we could try to lower the amount of the ask and look at how that would play out. And unfortunately, we were unable to balance our budget in anything less than $1.2 million. Could we go higher? Sure. But that is not what we believe is necessary and essential to stay viable and to be able to get us out to 2028, 2029, which would be the second biennium. I do want to make sure that people also understand in the formula, all schools do not receive the same amount of money per pupil. In fact, in the Middle Border District, a group of districts in which we are the top performing academically, we are near the bottom in per pupil funding. We are $47 per pupil more than last place. And Amory receives $427 per child more than the Prescott Public Schools. In addition, Hudson, one of our neighbors, receives over $1,250 more each year per pupil compared to a Prescott student.
From state.
From the state, not from its community. This is money at the time where we're all starting from different places. That's why we talk about the formula is broken. It is why 289 districts have gone for referendum and have operating levies in place. 800 plus districts have either recurring or non-recurring, and 87% of districts of the 420 have gone for a referendum since 2000. So that is the scenario. You can't cut your way to being competitive. Know that our neighboring districts, River Falls did pass, its community invested in public education, both for bonds like we did and also for operating. They will have a $1 million operating levy this year. Then it steps up to $2 million, and by the year 2026, River Falls Public Schools has invested $3 million ongoing, recurring for operations. Hudson Public Schools, who receives $1,250 more than Prescott Public Schools, which would equate to, on our population, $1.65 million. If we were just funded equally compared to Hudson, we would be not having to go to our local community. And Hudson School Board just approved a $5 million operating levy question for November 5th. So it's not something that is a Prescott issue, but here is a Prescott issue. This is the kitchen table issue. This is how much money we are charged on a monthly basis for gas and heat in 2015-2016, $3,700. Electricity, just shy of $15,000. Our health insurance back then was just under $2 million at 1.9. It is currently, last year, cost us 2.8. You see that gas and heat has gone up 70%, electricity 96.5%. Those are the costs, just like a homeowner that has to make a paycheck cover their fixed costs. On the far right, it shows the per pupil increase. In 2015, Prescott Public Schools received $10,378 per child. Last year, we received $11,074, an increase of 6.7% over 9 years. It's simple math. It's less than 1% per year. And over the last 2 years, Prescott Public Schools has increased compensation for its staff by 6.5%. The board is doing everything it can to attract and retain staff, but it's not being funded from Madison. And so that is why we have to go to our community. Now, one of the things that we have met, and we've given you different scenarios, and on Friday we got the overall valuation for the 5 municipalities that make up Prescott Public Schools. The overall increase is 10%, is that right? Thank you. And the state average was 8%. In 2024, our mill rate was 7.7. which means that a $100,000 house was paying $770 for taxes. And then you would go up, double it for $200 and $300. Pardon me?
The school portion of our taxes.
Yep, school portion, right? You can see it has dropped significantly since 2015 on a downward spiral, meaning the proportion of the tax bill for our community has decreased each year. In April, based on the valuation, the mill rate would have gone up. But based on today's scenarios, based on our budget, we could ask for $1.2 million. We have run both the forecast model through Baird. They were on site with me and Kara Klatt, who's our new finance director, and the revenue limit worksheet. The overall mill rate with a referendum for this year would be 7.69, basically flat.
Can you clarify why that is? Because next year the mill rate was predicted to go down.
The overall mill rate will go down if it's not supported. However, then we will be continuing to make cuts.
Yeah.
If we are supported with a 1.2 million, we hold serve. And initially, it was up in the 8.45. So based on the valuations, based on our proportion, and having more taxpayer money available, the overall impact based on the district ask will have no significant impact. on the proportion that we're asking out of the overall tax base. However, what it does mean is that neighboring districts no longer would have a foot up on us for salaries, because you have 5 priorities that you have identified: the compensation, to make sure that we attract and retain staff; second, to look at hotspots as the school year opens with regards to academic programs or staffing issues that we have; third, investment in curriculum; 4, to make sure that activities, athletics, and extracurricular are funded to the degree that allows as many opportunities for our students from previously. And then 5th was, if there was residual dollars, that would be going into Fund 46 for capital improvement. We did clarify with Baird that contributions to Fund 46 does count as money spent, and money, therefore, it would not count against you with regards to future funding, which is always based on what you've spent. With that, I'll ask if there's any other clarifying questions. You obviously have seen many of the scenarios. I think it's time for us to make a decision about when, how much, and there's 2 steps to the process. If you're ready, there's other questions we can clarify, and I'll defer to you.
Yeah, Tanya, let's start with you. And I mean, questions are just comments in general overall about the process, whatever you want to go to.
Rick, I was, as you were talking, I was adding up all the meetings that we've had since April to discuss this, and you brought up the number 8, which is great. I think 4 of those were work sessions. And I just wanted to comment that we have been meeting a ton, all of which have been public meetings. We recommended last time, the community really just felt like we weren't being transparent and we weren't talking about all these scenarios. And so we recommended come to work sessions, hear us speak. And I just wanted to comment that out of 4 work sessions, we had 1 community member come 1 time. And that community member was Michael. So that was it. It's unfortunate. We tell people all the time that if you want to hear us, how we're thinking, how we're talking, that those are really the times to come. So for the whole community that missed all of those, we did run through multiple scenarios. We met for hours, talked many questions. How can we get it down to an ask of 1.0 million? It just really, unfortunately, this last time, for me, my perspective, it looked like it's just not possible. If we got down to the 1 million, which is a lesser ask, even based on our cuts and everything and running everything, I think it was about a little over a year from now, we're going to have to be cutting the next 1.2 million from our budget. It just does not, we cannot sustain it in our budget more than, I think, a year. We did a lot of work with our finance team, with Rick, looking at what do we need to have in our fund balance, how low can we go, we don't need to have extra, all this kind of stuff. And really the reality just kept sticking that it's just, if we want to retain our staff and pay our staff a wage that is comparable, not even the best, but comparable to surrounding districts, that we really do need to keep going for a 1.2 million ask. We are giving our staff a 2.5% increase, if I recall, for this year. It's just not enough to keep up. And so that is one, I think, positive coming from this is with this ask, and we talked about this at our 4 work sessions, was that our priority is paying our staff. And that's something that I heard from the community really loud and clear is money should go to teachers, money should go to staff. We want to pay for our teachers. So I really feel like I'm leaning towards needing to, in November, so to the when, in November, we looked at the data at work sessions and these meetings about when to go, how all this, how they pass, how they don't pass. Go in November, ask for 1.2 million. That's kind of where I'm standing. And from my point of view, and we all did this as a group, the majority of that money I shouldn't say the majority, a big chunk of that money goes back to staff. It's not bringing everything back off our list. We couldn't, even with 1.2, we couldn't bring things like transportation back unless we're not going to give increases for our staff. I mean, we just can't afford it. So I am really curious to see how the community responds to that, because I heard loud and clear, pay our staff, we gotta keep our staff, we care about our staff, our kids love our staff, which I do too. And so a vote against this really, to me, is impacting a vote against our staff. So that's where I stand. I'm gonna recommend, for me anyways, a 1.2 in November.
Pat?
Don't want to repeat everything Tanya said. I think it's important, though, to repeat the fact that, so this year, Rick and the team did a wonderful job of balancing the budget after all the cuts that were made. So there's a balanced budget. It's important for people to understand that with any inflation, at any point in time beyond this, without additional cuts to what has already been cut, that budget cannot stay balanced. So starting next year, if nothing is passed, without additional cuts, there will be deficit spending. We will eat into the fund balance below the amounts that the board requires for safe harbor amounts, and we will not be able to, as Tanya said, invest in staff. So even though that a budget was able to be balanced, any inflation, without additional cuts that have already been made, really puts us in deficit spending next year. So doing something is critical. The 1.2, does invest in our staff. It's at a level greater than what was anticipated in the April vote. Very excited about that, and what it does do is it gets us out 2 more bienniums, which is also important. One question that we get a lot is, well, are you guys going to have to come back? Maybe in 5 or 6 years after the 2 bienniums that we do. We don't know what state funding is going to do, but it allows us to go through the rest of our 2035, is that what number we're on for our vision plan? So the 2035 vision, we'll have the opportunity to make facility and other long-range decisions that may positively or negatively affect what happens after the next 2 bienniums. So I think I covered what I wanted to cover, but it's critical we do something. The ask is the same, but that extra portion is getting spent on teachers and staff.
Vicki?
Yeah, we hammered things out and went over scenarios time and time again. A lot of back and forth with finance. The one thing that is, I think, really stands out to me is the information we got back on Friday. We weren't sure. We didn't know what the effect would be on the mill rate. The mill rate, this is fantastic news that it would stay steady. Then the other part of that is with getting, if this goes through in November and we get the 1.2, we get it right away this year. So this year we were like, okay, now we've got 1.2 million. How do we spend it? Like, we're getting it, we have to spend it. And that's where finding out that we don't have to then just spend all of this money. We're going to spend what we want to spend it on. But if we do have that little bit extra, that gives us ability to put it in Fund 46 and hold on to it down the road. If we have anything left, we can plan accordingly. So that, I think, is great news. That was one thing we wanted to know in our last work session, and that's good to know, because we know the high school is getting to the point. It's been here a while now that Mike Hoyka is going to be probably coming to us and needs some budget items taken care of. So if he can plan ahead and we can plan ahead, that's great. But we know that we can meet the needs that we need to meet with this 1.2. Yeah, we've hammered it out over and over again, and all of us have agreed that the priority is staff. we are testing, oh, I got a fly bug at me. We are really putting our staff to the test this year. With all the cuts that were made last year, we have already found out tonight that we made all of the cuts, and with enrollment numbers, which is great, we're getting a few more than anticipated. We already need that. We need some help back. We need we need someone to fill at least a .6 position. We are going to need that help. We don't know what the fluctuation throughout the year is going to look like. We could have other staff issues. We could have other things come up that we need to hire for, we need to replace, we need to fill, and we need to have that flexibility to do that. And this would give our administration the flexibility to do that, and I think it would help ease the minds of, I hope that it helps our staff ease their mind that we would have it available, and if you have needs, we're going to try and fill it. That's what we're asking the community for, is to help us maintain what we've got in place, but we need to be here and have funds available to help staff. We're down to one admin assistant in each building, in middle school and elementary. That's going to be tough. That's going to be hard for someone to run all of this information through with just one person in middle school. It's going to be hard. So we may find out we need to hire another half-time person. So I think we know we need this. We just need the community to support it.
Helen?
I think, just to reiterate, the 1.2 in November is what's important. This wasn't just a number plucked. We did have multiple forecasts that were put in front of us, and we explored them in great detail in those work sessions. Everyone did their part. Admin was asked to go back and make some really, really tough decisions and make some cuts, and then come back with what they needed. They did their part. Teachers are always doing their parts, and this year is going to be tough because they're expected, those class sizes are bigger, and that's going to be a tough part. And then some of those staff members aren't here anymore, and that's a tough part. So I think on our side, I think everything was done and done diligently, and 1.2 is really what we need to, we talk about a district of excellence, and we are. And we work really hard, and our students work really hard, and our admin work really hard, and teachers work really hard. And so I'm hoping the community hears that, and they believe that too, so, yeah.
Everybody has great takes here. I'm going to try to take a couple different ones here. Tanya, just really quick, I wanted to clarify. So that when we looked at all these different scenarios, the one that we were hoping to land on was the 1 million. And the reason that didn't work is because it put us in a deficit right in 25-26 here. So we are already going to be deficit spending starting in 25-26. I think that's what you were trying to articulate. But I wanted to call that out because 1 million, given the parameters of what we were hoping to accomplish with that, it just wasn't enough. So we went again back to the 1.2 to see where that put us, and even with that, given some of the parameters of what the board priorities were, mainly staff, we were trying to keep our staff, bring our staff pay back to a competitive range, and that's really important to us. We heard it from the community, just like Tanya said. Also address some of the hot spots. We call them hot spots, places that we cut too deep, and we need to bring back additional positions to address that. And some of the arts and athletics, the extracurricular stuff that was cut, we're also trying to get that back as well. I wanted to call out a couple things here. In the estimates, in all of our estimates, 324, we are predicting, we're in our forecasts for state aid. This is a big one. we made the assumption that we're getting a $325 per pupil increase every single year until,
Correct.
throughout the forecast. That hasn't always been the case. There's been many years where we got zero, but we have to forecast something. That's what we got this year, which was an actual, in the past, compared to past years, Rick, the 325 is more than we've had in the past years, would you say? It's been
Yes, because 6 out of 8, we got 0.
right? So let's just be real here. We're only forecasting $325 per pupil from the state, and they haven't really even done that over the last 6 years. So the forecast that we put together, some would say it might even be too aggressive with our forecast, and that the 1.2 will keep us from deficit spending until I forget what year. But I wanted to point that out because this is where we're at. I brought it up at the city. Rick brought it up. We're personnel driven. 80% of our budget goes to personnel because that's what we do. We teach kids, so we need people to teach kids, right? So if you want to stay competitive, if you want to have the great statistics that we show that we're number one in the middle border and our academics are on top, you have to pay your staff. You have to pay your teachers. You have to pay your personnel. The state number that we're forecasting that was aggressive is not enough to even keep up with that. So to Pat's point, if that number holds true, which I hope it does, I'm doubtful that it will. I hope it does, but that's not going to be enough. The state funding does not keep up with the pace of expenses for a district that is for an organization that is 80% personnel driven. It's just a fact. So people are going to ask this question: why are you coming back to me in 6 years from now for more money? We're trying to get to a point where we can at least forecast and maybe plan out the Vision 2035. We talked a lot about that in the workshops. How can we get to possibly getting down into 3 buildings, maybe. 3 academic buildings. That would be one way to try to cut some expenses. But those are topics that we're going to have to really take our time and do the right way and bring community input in. That's what we want to do. And we're going to do that as soon as we possibly can, as soon as we can get through this hump. But that is so important for people to understand that just because we're asking for a 1.2 million and it's going to be baked into our budget recurring, doesn't mean that it's the end. We still have a state funding issue, and that's the way it's been since 2009. I hope that makes sense. And then the fund balance. I know we talked about the fund balance inflation. We looked at. We're looking at roughly about a $5.4 million floor for a fund balance. That gets us to the 28, 29 biennium as well. I think the big thing for us, it's so ironic, it's so coincidental that we came to a $1.2 million number. That's what we need. That's what we're asking the public to support because that's what we need. And the fact that we got news on Friday that it's a 0%, how do I frame that up? The tax impact for your current taxes will not go up with a $1.2 million ask being supported. That's as coincidental and ironic as it possibly can get. So that was it. From the folks that I talked to that voted against the referendum in April, tax impact was a huge thing. I kind of did some rough math. I don't have the math we did last year, but just based on that graph, I think for a $300,000 home, I think it was roughly $225 a year impact. That's $400,000 home, $300 a year. That's quite a bit for folks to and we're a property heavy district. I think our assessment overall is homes are probably somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000 on average. So it would have been a huge impact to families, and I know that was one of the reasons why people did vote against it. Knowing now that the tax impact will not impact your current tax bill moving forward. If you support this, it will not increase the school district portion of your taxes. I think that is a huge win, and we're very blessed and lucky to be able to promote that. So again, I think there's really good stuff there. I hit on everything I wanted to. I'm going to just open it up again. Does anybody else have anything to add?
I had one quick question, and Rick, just remind me, if we ask this 1.2 million or whatever number we come to, and it gets voted down again, are we not able to ask again for a certain period of time?
No, that's kind of sunset. You are locked in that you can only ask twice in a calendar year.
Okay.
And so, obviously, November is very close to December.
Yep.
And so it resets the clock on January 1st, 2025.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe a point, though, that anything after November, Rick, it's likely we would not be able to encumber any funds for this year's budget. So we would be at a deficit spend situation. So that's why November is important.
Yep, that's a good clarification. So November, if supported by the community, those dollars would be part of the revenue that comes in this academic year. If we have to go in April or February, April, if it's unsupported, those dollars would not hit until the school year of 25-26.
Yep.
Board, are we ready to make a motion here? Any further dialogue right now? And I'm ready. If anybody wants to make the motion, let's get it rolling.
I move to approve a resolution authorizing the school district budget to exceed revenue limit by $1,200,000 for reoccurring purposes.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's just roll call. Helen?
Yes.
Yes. Tanya? I'm sorry, Vicky?
Aye.
Tanya?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
I am an aye as well. And motion carries.
Just for the record, I do want to put up, obviously, these become legal documents. There's a full resolution providing for a referendum. It's the direction of the clerk back to administration that it's allowing us to move forward. But then that's part one. So there's this resolution drafted by Quarles and Brady, provided to the board prior to this meeting, that goes through all of the steps, and then it'll be based on your motion tonight that will need signatures of the district president and district clerk, Mike Matzik and Patrick Block. All right. Now we go to the second part, which is then the actual language that would appear on the ballot. As you know, we have, during our work sessions, gone back and forth, and one of the things that we wanted to do is be a little bit more clear about operations. So we kind of work in the world of education and educational language. We wanted to be a little bit more specific about what those expenses include, and so I'm going to pull that up, and this is what is being proposed that would be language that would go on the November 5th ballot. And there it is. So the first part is by statute. You have to talk that it's the school board, where you're located, what the revenue budget is authorizing to exceed the revenue limit. The statute, you've already approved 1.2. It would be beginning in the school year 24-25. Now this is where you get to include some additional language, and what you have proposed is that it be for recurring purposes, for ongoing operational expenses, including first priority, compensation for staff. Second, funding for academic and extracurricular activities or extracurricular programs for students.
Pat, do you have any comments or questions on this one? This is a workshop item.
It's a workshop item. It summarizes what we just spent a bunch of time talking about. So I think it says what it needs to say. I agree, it's a little more clear. And no questions by me.
Tanya?
No questions. I just want to, again, for the community, let people know that this is something that we talked actually to a lot about. We did get legal advice on it and all that stuff, and really the things that we talked the most about was that last couple lines where we have to be fairly specific on what the funds will be used for. And so part of the modeling that we did was looking at all of the cuts we did. What can we bring back? What can't we bring back? Do we have enough money for that? What do we need to prioritize? And we really prioritized, again, paying our staff, and in order to retain our staff and the academics, continuing with our academics, as well as getting some of our academics and extracurricular programs back in the schools for our kids that we had to cut. And those were the things that we were able to prioritize. It wasn't everything that we cut, and because the 1.2 million does not cover everything that we cut, so.
Vicki?
No, we discussed this last time, made our edits, and, we talked in the work session of how and what we wanted it to say and how we wanted to phrase it and clear it up and have a more concise ask. So I'm good.
I'm good. That's what we need.
Yeah, I'll just point out that when we went in April, it went up to the point of ongoing operational expenses. That was pretty much the question we asked in April. So we, as a board, decided we wanted to be a little bit more descriptive with where that money's going for in operational expenses for folks to understand a little bit better. That was the rationale there. So hopefully that's clear for folks. Anything else? Otherwise, we can entertain a motion here.
Maybe point of clarification here. With the motion, do we need to read the resolution or just simply say as presented?
You can do as presented.
Okay. Well then, I will move to approve resolution providing for a referendum election on the question of the approval of a resolution authorizing the school district budget to exceed revenue limit by $1,200,000 for reoccurring purposes for November 5th, 2024, and resolution as presented today.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's do another roll call. Yes or no? Helen?
Aye.
Vicki?
Aye.
Tanya?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
I am an aye as well. I almost called you Tanya once again. So that motion carries. We're going to referendum in November, everyone. Strap up.
We're going to get name tags for you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to info and discussion. First item is teaching and learning update.
Yeah, this is...
I need some of that coffee.
It's football season.
This is probably one of the, something that we're really excited about, and really kind of this morning we had all of our staff on site, hourly workers, licensed staff in the Performing Arts Center. We gave an update about the kind of changes that have occurred that are kind of personal, emotional, and we covered those. We talked about our finances, and then we talked about why we exist. And the most important thing is to get back to making sure that we elevate beyond being number one. And we're going to do it through frameworks that are referred to as building thinking classrooms. Mr. Kozmowski has done an outstanding job of taking a team down to Arizona and coming back. This is a continuation of how we are developing Vision 2035 and looking at how we have invested in the infrastructure of all of our facilities now allows us to turn our eye toward how we make sure that the learning and working environment promotes continuous learning for our students. And so with that, Michael Kozmowski, Director of Teaching and Learning.
last month when I was here, my video didn't work, and I really wanted to watch it, so I made sure I knew I had to plug it in this month. Thanks for having me back again. Again, the one topic I'm going to cover today, and we've talked a little bit about Act 20. I don't really have any updates on that. But the big one is that we've had our district kickoff to our building thinking classrooms. So this summer, there was a group of 4 educators, one from each building, that went with me to a training in Phoenix, Arizona on thinking classrooms. That's the second annual training on this. The framework itself came out in 2019, just before COVID. So it's taken a little while to kick off. But we worked with the PLC leadership team at the Data Dig. They had 2 different experiences of being learners in a thinking room. And we debriefed about them as learners and what that experience felt like to them, and how we really couldn't relate that to our own experiences when we were as learners in the classroom. But then also looking at what was I doing as the teacher. And the biggest takeaway is that we didn't notice you. They didn't ask me questions. They were working with each other. They were looking at each other's boards. They were stealing ideas. And that's really what the thinking classroom is all about. I contemplated having the board get up and go to a whiteboard and do one tonight. But for sake of time, we're not going to do that.
Clock is the whiteboard.
see the whiteboard.
Will be the next one.
The Donald
next
group,
time.
right?
It was fun.
So why a thinking classroom? Why is that important? One thing that we know is that when students think, they learn. And the research shows is that most students aren't thinking most of the time. They're doing other things. And when I say thinking, they're not thinking deeply enough that they're building their own knowledge. They're thinking usually at a cursory level. They're trying to take in that information and know that I've got a quiz on Friday that I got to know this for. And I know I have a test next Friday that I'm going to take. And then after that, it's file delete. Right? So how do we get kids to do more thinking, deeper thinking for longer? That's really what this is. And these 14 frameworks that Peter Littlejoe came up with, there's a lot of other ones. And some of these we're already doing. It's just that next step, the little refinement to it. So you might say, well, if kids aren't thinking, what are they doing? It's what I'm sure some of us can relate to.
What are they doing instead? They're mimicking. So what is mimicking? Mimicking is where the teacher shows them how to do it and the students just copy it. And this is a problem. And why is it a problem? Because mimicking is so effective in the short term. If a student mimics, they will be successful now. They might even be successful tonight. They might be successful on the quiz tomorrow. But mimicking actually runs out at some point. Mimicking as a learning strategy stops being effective eventually as the students get older. And the things that they learn through mimicking fades very quickly because they haven't actually learned. And the reason for this is that they're not thinking. Thinking is a necessary precursor to learn. If students are not thinking, they're not learning. And mimicking is not thinking. Mimicking is not learning.
And I think there's a lot of research out there. I think at the collegiate level, the amount of students that have to take remedial courses. They were successful when they were in the K-12 program. And they get to that, postgraduate, and they can't be successful anymore. And I think a lot of it is we talk about doing school. A lot of kids can do school because they're mimicking, they're hiding, they're faking it. Right? They're getting up and sharpening their pencil, asking to go to the bathroom, refilling their water bottle, right? All because of the thinking. And we have to just get more kids thinking. And the way you get more kids thinking, we have to change some of our practices. But why is it that way? This was the video from last week. It's a little bit longer. It's about 4 minutes. But I think it's worth, as a board, you seeing, because these are some of the questions that you're going to be asked by the community of, these teachers aren't teaching my kids anymore.
The other thing I noticed as I visited these classrooms was that classrooms look more alike than they look different. Sure, there's differences, but there are so many similarities. I've been in classrooms on 6 different continents, and it doesn't matter if I'm in Sweden or Chile or Australia or Taiwan. Everywhere I go, classrooms look alike. And in the 40 classrooms I visited, it happened multiple times that I would walk into a room and I would say, hold on, I've been in this room. I want to be in different classrooms. I'd look through my digital photos. Yeah, there it is. Look at my logbook. No, different school, different town. Like, classrooms look so much alike. And what happens in classrooms looks so much alike. Right? There was this set of practices I kept seeing over and over and over again. There was the lecture, the Q&A, question and answer, maybe some demonstration by a student. But every single lesson I observed ended with students doing individual seat work. Every one of those 40 lessons ended exactly the same. And what this means is that, or what's interesting about this is that the fact that classrooms look alike and what happens in classrooms looks alike has been true for a very long time. Public education has existed for about 150 years, since the end of the first industrial revolution. And when it was formed, it laid down a set of practices that are still with us today. I do. We do. You do. This is what teaching has always looked like. This is what it looks like. No wonder students are mimicking, because everything we do as teachers is laid out to create an I do, we do, you do situation. What has changed in education in the last 150 years? So yeah, I visited these 40 classrooms 20 years ago. But 20 days ago, I was in a school, and I walked down the hallway, and 18 out of the 20 classrooms I looked in on were all teaching exactly the same way. I do, we do, you do. The students were sitting there mimicking, not thinking. They were disengaged, they were bored. Right? So what this means is that these are not classroom norms. These are not norms that the teacher has constructed. These are institutional norms. These are normative structures that have permeated the very fabric of school in such a way that we see it everywhere, all over the world. And in many ways, these are non-negotiable, meaning that teachers don't think they have any choice. This is what teaching looks like. This is what teaching has always looked like. This is what teaching always will look like. And I started to realize that if everywhere I go, I see students not thinking, and everywhere I go, I see these institutional norms, these things must be connected. And what that means is, if I want to get students to think, I'm going to have to start breaking these institutional norms. And that became my research project. And for over 15 years, I worked with over 400 teachers, conducting thousands and thousands of micro-experiments. We were trying to renegotiate the non-negotiated norms. Our goal was to break the norms and see if it could have an impact on thinking. We only cared about 2 possible results. Could we get more students thinking? Could we get them thinking for longer?
So that's a little insight into the journey we are on as a district. And as we're rolling this out to staff, we're talking about a journey, a 3 to 5 year, just to get the 14 ideas to our teachers so they can digest, have conversations, work interdependently, and put them into practice. It's going to take time. Again, a lot of times we talk about when teaching gets tough, we rely on our experiences. What's been modeled for us? And what's been modeled for us is exactly what Peter said. When I watched that interview, I was like, that was my entire career. I watched a teacher show an example, we tried some as a class, and then here's the worksheet. Do it on your own. If you got questions, you raise your hand. And you have teachers frantically going around and trying to answer questions. And when we did it the other way the other day, there were questions in the room. Not a one got asked to the teacher though. So, what is it going to look like? Right? One, it's going to be defronted. In other words, we can learn from anywhere in the classroom. You can't hide in the back of class any longer. We're going to have students standing, working at whiteboards whenever possible. There's going to be a lot of student discourse, student-led conversations versus the teacher-led, right? The biggest one probably that you're going to hear about is the teachers won't answer my questions of my student. And when we talk about answering questions, we talk about stop thinking questions and keep thinking questions. And if a kid asks you a stop thinking question, is this right? And that happened. And Mr. Figge was in a group that got done quite early, and they said, is this right? And my answer was, can you show me another way to get to that same answer? So I didn't answer their question, and then I walked away. And I just left them. And guess what? They found another way, right? So that is going to be probably the biggest one, is we're not helping kids anymore. No, we're helping them differently, right? Students working in random groups. Every classroom there's group work. I don't know if you saw on the Olympics, I can't remember who the basketball player was, but after the Olympics, our team won gold. He posted and he said, it's like being in the group, not contributing, but still getting the A. And I think he had played like a total of like 7 minutes in the total, all of the Olympics, right? That's not going to happen anymore. Everyone's got to roll. Everyone's got to participate. The group size matters. It matters by grade level. And then that knowledge mobility. Students walking around the room and cheating. I had a teacher, we did this at the elementary level, and one teacher that she said, well, I wandered around the room and I cheated off other people. And then I came back to my group and we worked some more. Yeah, that's learning. That's what I wanted you to work more. I didn't want you to give up because you didn't know what to do next. Right? But again, they didn't raise their hand and ask me. They walked around the room. They got knowledge from within the room. So that knowledge being mobile. And this is what it looked like. You don't have a whiteboard? We're using the glass on the windows. Right? Those are some of our brand new teachers in that top right corner working together. Mr. Igo writing so feverishly, his hand is just a blur. Pointing things out. And this is what it looked like. We have some early adopters, teachers that have been doing this already for a year. This is a 5th grade classroom. 2 male students with a female student. I can tell you right now, when I was in 5th grade, there's no way I'm picking to work with any girls. Right? You can see what this is really an aide that's in the classroom, what she's doing. She's not pointing things out to the student. She's listening to what's happening. Students are having the discourse on if they're right or wrong, not with the teacher. The student is a little blurry out of the corner of her eye. You can see that she's listening to what this kid is telling her, because one of the rules is whoever's doing the writing only writes what they're being told to write. And if there's an idea you want to share and you want to get it up on the board, you got to hand the pen to someone else. Right? Students explain to each other what's going on. And again, knowledge mobility. Here's a group, absolutely nothing. What are they doing? They're listening to this group and looking at what are they doing? What are they trying? Can we try that? Right? That's math. Last year in 5th grade in Ms. Magnino's classroom. So why BTC? We talk about a daily desired experience that we have both for our students and for our staff, where the learner is at the center of it, there's collaborative discussion, they feel empowered in their own knowledge and building. And that's why BTC, that's why we're moving to this now. And again, it does also for the teachers, the facilitator of a learner. Right? They're working interdependently with kids and with the curriculum. So that's why BTC, that's why we're making this move. That's why we've asked you to make this investment, because make no doubt about it, it will be an investment. We have 100, 70, and 50-year-old buildings that were set up to be I do, we do, you do. And now we're changing that. We're going to have to change, one, the space when possible, and if not possible, get creative on how we use that space differently, so that way Kids are thinking deeper, and thinking longer. Thank you.
Anybody have any comments or questions for Michael here?
No, thanks. Good to see the momentum. We know we got to do things differently, so this is fantastic. Good. Nice presentation. Thank you.
Glad the video worked. Yeah, thank you.
We did watch the backroom bicycle.
Did you like it?
The backwards bicycle video. I had to watch it twice at first to see what was going on.
Yeah.
It was good. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks, Michael. I think I learned why maybe I didn't retain about 80% of what I learned in school, because I mimicked everything.
Don't blame it all on that, Matson.
No, I'm just winging it every day. So, all right. I guess I just lost my place.
Michael, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Michael. Looks great. I am excited. Yeah, we're going to summer construction projects.
Yes, as you can see, it's depending on who you ask, how things are going. But we have an incredible opportunity. If you look at some of the slides that we looked at before and after, we shared some of those with our staff as they were returning. Remember, this is a 2-year project based on dollars that our community has invested in our 3 oldest buildings. So from our intermediate school at 125 Elm, that building is coming into shape. 100% of the learning spaces will be air conditioned, including the gymnasium. We have new fire alarms. The fire alarms are connected to an external monitoring system for school safety. We've updated piping and the bathrooms at the Malone Elementary. We have installed 100% LED lighting, cost controls with regards to our fixed utility costs. We were able to create a safe space with regards to paralleling the main entrance will look nearly identical to the Prescott High School. You have the dual vestibule doors that are fobbed in and out with an office to the left. All of the main structures are in place. We're still trying to finalize some of the lighting sensors, but all of the teachers have access to his or her classrooms, and our custodians have done a remarkable job as they've worked in and around and with Markin & Johnson and the other vendors. The middle school at 1220 is the furthest along, and we're coming down just to a punch list. We're very happy with the changes that are in place. If you kind of looked at the outside of the building with now the tan metal panels, 100% of that is done. The roofing is done. There has been no roof leaks, and everything's in place. A lot of it now is just touch-ups. We have some final walkthroughs starting tomorrow just to start the punch list. And obviously there are, when you have that much construction, that many people, it's like whack-a-mole. There's always something, and teachers are doing a great job of notifying us, and we have a nice systematic way of getting the information to Mike Hoyka, custodians, if we can problem solve. Otherwise, Markin & Johnson has been very responsive to us. So we're sitting well for receiving our students, and we are really happy to notify the community that at Malone Elementary on Friday, September 27th, we'll have a ribbon cutting. It'll coincide with the Malone Parent Group Back to School Bash, and we thought it'd be a great opportunity to give tours of Malone because it is the one that has the most physical changes that I think people would recognize, given most of the infrastructure is up in ceilings and behind walls. So stay tuned to that, but otherwise, any questions from the board about construction?
Any questions on here, Helen?
No, I got an impromptu tour of the elementary school and it looks amazing. So being able to, I've worked there, so that office is amazing. So you guys are, yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah, and I kind of forget that it's also a much larger nursing station and area with its own hand washing, bathroom, and which is important because it's the second largest student body.
Yes, yeah.
Vicki?
I don't have any questions. I think it's been amazing. I see that the track is done, the lines are on, so that's good. The weather cooperated for everything here at the very end. And I think we seriously need to consider running some sort of contest within the schools to name the buildings, because this trying to remember them by address is really, really difficult. We got Malone, let's name the other ones.
I agree. Tanya?
No comments.
Pat?
No, just a quick thank you again to Dr. Spikuza and the administration and all the staff. These are speaking from a contractor's perspective who's anxious to be done with our own kind of summer slams. These are not fun for anybody, and I know you guys have had grace with the contractors, and thank you guys for putting up with it and understanding it. And for Dr. Spikuza, thank you, because this is a full-time job that you and Mike have been doing outside of your other full-time jobs. So appreciate all that effort.
Yeah, Pat said it best. It's extra work on everybody's plate when you're dealing with facilities improvements. So the extra effort, the sleepless nights that I'm sure Mike has had and Rick you've had, it's greatly appreciated, and I'm glad. I'm hoping it's coming to an end here, and we can focus on other stuff. So thank you for all your work. All right. Item C, finally, in info and discussion, is budget and audit updates.
Yes, so I'll do it in reverse. The audit, they were on site at the end of July, beginning of August. Caraclat has stepped in and is continuing to work with Clifton Larson Allen. There are no significant findings or any concerns. We are continuing to move forward with now building our budget for the 24-25 school year. We are accelerated compared to where we have been historically, and a lot of that is due to the need of the reductions. You also received your monthly reports, is that we already have a pre-populated budget. It wasn't something that we did 3 years ago. So we have made leaps and bounds with regards to getting you information on time, and we now know that we're going to be posting a .6 position at minimum for Malone, so we'll be tweaking. One of the things that we always say at this point in time is that the number and the exact mill rate is going to fluctuate, but we also have an annual meeting. And so you know that the board has just authorized for a ballot question of $1.2 million. It'll be on our November 5th ballot and during the presidential election. That is critical for you to, if you have questions about anything since April or understanding finance and public education, we invite you to the annual meeting now scheduled for September 25th. Here at the high school at 6 p.m. right here in the media center.
All right, anybody have any questions, comments?
No.
That is going to conclude information discussion. We're on to recognition of visitors. Anybody care to be recognized? All right, I'd like to say we're going to take a motion to adjourn, but we are not. We are going to consider a motion to convene into closed session under exemptions 1985 1F, and that is for Director of Special Ed report to the board, student privacy issues and possibly identification requiring closed session. And then student one.
And let me the full title is a seclusion and physical restraint of special education. The reason that it goes into closed is because the number of students that fall into that type of report can be identified, and for protection of that has to be done in closed session.
All right, and that was 1F. And then 1G is a presentation from our legal counsel.
Correct. And we do have one other with 1985 1F, updating you on student discipline, student 1, 2, and 3.
Student 1, 2, 3, okay. So let's just make a motion for a time and then a second, and we'll roll call.
Do we need a location as well?
Yep, time and place.
Okay.
Well,
we're in
it'll be a 117A.
All right.
I move to adjourn, go into closed session at 8:25, just to give people enough time, in, which room was it? Conference room?
117A.
117A.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, Helen.
Aye.
Tanya.
Aye.
Helen.
I don't know, what am I saying now?
Vicky.
So tired.
Vicky. Oh, God, Pat, I'm going to get roasted.
I'm so tired.
Did you
Yes,
say
aye.
I say aye as well. So 8:25, we're going into close. What's wrong with me?
I'm glad you are taking minutes tonight.
God,
All right.
Got any name tags?
sorry.
We're adjourned to moving to closed session.
I can't.
We
I don't know
probably
what's
should
going on.
have them. We should probably have them.